The air was not breathable. It was not made of oxygen and nitrogen, but of microscopic daggers of pure ice. With every breath, it felt as if the lungs were being lined with shards of frozen glass. Even sunlight, when it existed, seemed crushed, filtered through a perpetual haze of suspended crystals that turned the horizon into a monochromatic landscape of pale blue and opaque white. -77 degrees Celsius. That was the number. The silent death sentence that wrapped the Siberian taiga that winter. A temperature that stalled engines, cracked steel, and turned exposed flesh into brittle marble in mere minutes. It was the absolute limit of what life could endure. And right in the middle of that white inferno, surrounded by kilometers of untouched and lethal forest, stood Ilara Petrova, 91 years old. Ilara's cabin, built more than 7 decades earlier by her late husband, was the only stain of civilization, the last bastion of warmth and humanity. It was small, made of thick birch logs, darkened and sealed with layers of moss and frozen mud, a silent testament to a lifetime of brutal resilience. But the cold, though constant and fatal, was not what kept Ilara from closing her eyes. It was not what made her old, weary yet stubborn heart beat with an irregular, hurried cadence. It was not what forced her to hold her breath, listening with an attention that age had failed to steal, to every sound that broke the polar night's silence. What terrified her was the moving shadow, the eyes glowing in the opaque darkness beyond the cabin's perimeter, circling the only source of heat for miles. What paralyzed her was the visceral ancestral knowledge that she had been found, tracked, and surrounded. The pack had arrived. They were not just 2 or 3 starving wolves displaced by the brutal scarcity of prey at winter's peak. This was the Ashen Pack, legendary in the region, known for its unusual size and, more importantly, for its almost human predatory intelligence. Ilara had heard the howls at dusk, a long, melancholic, calculated sound, not merely a call, but a declaration of intent, a tactical siege. Ilara dragged herself from her bed of hides, her knees grinding painfully. Her movements were slow and deliberate, burdened by 91 years of hard living, yet her mind remained clear and sharp as ice. The fire in the wood stove flickered, casting dancing shadows that intensified the sense of claustrophobia and vulnerability. The heat inside, perhaps a comfortable 5 degrees above freezing, was a luxury she knew drew her predators closer. Then the sound began, not a howl, but a low, guttural growl, mixed with the wet, heavy scrape of something massive against the outer wood. They were testing the resistance. The door, made of Siberian pine, 10 centimeters thick, reinforced with heavy wrought iron bolts Dmitri had installed 40 years earlier. She had always believed that door could withstand anything. Bears, raging winds, even oblivion itself. But the impact that followed made the entire cabin groan and crack. The wolves were acting in coordination. This was not a random attack. Ilara realized from how the weight shifted against the structure that they had divided tasks. Some assaulted the main door while others worked silently at the boarded windows, searching for weakness. The cold outside was beginning to seep through the cracks. She could feel the glacial breath of death waiting, and the vapor escaping her own mouth became a visual reminder of how close she was to the edge. Ilara was alone. Completely.
I came as fast as
the
I could.
last time she had seen another human had been 11 months earlier, when the pilot of a small monoplane had come to replenish essential supplies. In conditions like these, at -77, there was no chance of rescue. Radios failed, fuel turned to gel, and even the thought of seeking help was a cruel fantasy. Her only defense was her wits and the solidity of that old cabin, but the cabin was failing. The generator, which powered a single kerosene lamp, had stopped working 3 days earlier. The lamp oil was nearly gone. She depended entirely on the inconsistent heat of the wood stove, and her supply of dry firewood was dangerously low. The cutting irony was that if the fire died, it wouldn't be the wolves that killed her first, but the ice freezing her blood in her veins within hours. She paced in slow circles, eyes locked on the door. She had no weapon. Dmitri had been a hunter, But all his guns had been sold or traded for supplies when life became too costly. All that remained was a dull kitchen knife and an axe with a broken handle, useless defenses against a desperate, coordinated pack. The smell began to seep through the wood, the strong, earthy, wild odor of canines. They were very close now. She could hear claws scraping ice, rapid panting, and the unmistakable presence of the alpha, a massive wolf dictating the rhythm of the assault.
Howling began.
What would
The sound
Ilara
of the
do?
pack moving forward,
What could
their
she
coordinated
do?
attack
The
continues.
tension
Wolf
grew not
continues
only
howling
from
and
physical
directing.
threat, but from psychological warfare. The pack was testing her endurance, waiting for panic to force a mistake, to make her open the door or weaken the fire. But Ilara was not prone to panic. 91 years in the taiga teach you that panic is a luxury that kills. She stopped in front of the small wooden table, where a single object rested, something she had kept close to her body all night, a small dark metal box. It was not gold, not jewelry. It was an old box, its engravings faded, which she had kept strangely warm, wrapped in a piece of wool cloth. That box held the secret, not a modern defense, not a weapon, but something tied to ancestral knowledge, a tacit pact with nature she had kept silent for decades. She opened the box just a crack, and a strange odor escaped, slightly sweet and earthy with metallic notes. A smell that did not belong. Not food, not smoke. Something biological. Something that smelled of deep soil and time. She closed the box quickly. The cold burned sharper now, forcing her to act. The wolves grew furious. The attack intensified, becoming rhythmic impacts. The alpha was coordinating the assault, and Ilara knew the wood would not hold until dawn. She needed a pattern interrupt. She needed to break the logic of predation. Ilara moved to the thickest corner of the cabin. She put on her reindeer hide coat, an item heavier than her own body. She covered her head, leaving only her eyes exposed. She was preparing for the inevitable. In that moment of inner stillness, as chaos howled outside, she remembered Dimitri's words. When a wolf looks at you, it doesn't see flesh. It sees your intention. Her intention. Ilara had no intention of dying there, frozen or torn apart. But she also had no intention of fighting conventionally. At 91, life had become a constant negotiation with death. She was about to make the final negotiation, the boldest one. The final groan of the pine door was imminent. She could hear fibers tearing, crying under the concentrated force of teeth and claws. A thin beam of icy light pierced a new crack, and for a fleeting instant, Ilara saw coarse gray fur and the malignant gleam of a yellow eye staring inside. Remember the conditions. 91 years old, minus 77 degrees Celsius, completely isolated from civilization. The question the entire taiga seemed to whisper on the wind was not if she would survive, but how she would survive a siege that defied the very logic of animal predation. What was in the box, and why, instead of hiding or reinforcing the door, did Ilara begin moving toward it, ignoring the bolts and the growls? She placed the broken axe on the floor. The kitchen knife stayed on the table. She would not need those weapons. Her hand trembled, not from fear but from cold and anticipation, as it slid over the rusted latch. She was about to open the only physical barrier between herself and the pack. It was madness. Madness only the taiga, with its power to suspend reality, could have conceived. She knew that the moment the door opened, she would be defenseless. The alpha's scent was overwhelming now. She could feel its hot, offensive breath. Ilara made the choice. With a slow, deliberate pull, accompanied by the sharp, horrific sound of wood tearing completely apart, Ilara Petrova, 91 years old, opened the cabin door to hell at minus 77 degrees. The pack's roar was immediate and deafening, a chorus of hunger and triumph echoing across the frozen vastness. The first thing that entered was not a paw or a head, but a glacial wave of cold that nearly knocked her over. What the wolves expected was a cowering victim, a helpless old woman, or perhaps a desperate shot. But what emerged from the cabin, along with the last breath of warmth, was not a scream. Ilara raised her hand, revealing the metal box. She opened it fully, allowing the strong, alien scent to spread through the frozen air. And then she did something utterly unforeseen, something that shattered every rule of human-wolf interaction. The sight of what Alara held, and what she did with the contents of that box, combined with a sound that was neither human nor wolf, but something ancient and deep that escaped her lips, made the entire pack freeze. The Alpha halted mere centimeters away, its growl dissolving into confusion. What happened next defies all logic of predation, survival, and nature itself. What Alara revealed, and the immediate shocking reaction of the wolves, is about to change everything you think you know about coexistence at the edge of life. If you're shocked by what Alara just did and want to know the secret she guarded for decades, what was inside the box, and the final outcome of this epic confrontation, leave a like now and comment the word wolf for part 2.